Commander Laura Hayes stood in the observation room of the diplomatic vessel and looked out at the stars. She was nervous, but she did not show it. Humanity had finally been invited to meet with the Valorians, and this was the most important moment in human history. The Valorians were an old and powerful species. They had controlled much of the galaxy for thousands of years. They had technology that humans could barely understand. Now they wanted to meet with Earth's representatives. Laura was chosen because she was smart and calm. She had studied the Valorians for years. She knew that they loved to show off their power. They believed that size and strength meant everything. Laura had learned this from the messages that the Valorians sent to Earth. Everything they did was meant to impress and intimidate other species. The diplomatic vessel carried Laura and her team. Engineer Kevin Walsh sat near the communication systems. He was one of the best engineers in the world. He understood ships and weapons better than almost anyone. Tactical Officer Amy Rodriguez was there too. She studied how wars were fought and how to win battles. There was also Dr. Robert Patterson, a scientist who studied alien cultures. Together, they were Earth's best hope for making a good impression on the Valorians. As they got closer to the meeting point in space, the Valorian flagship appeared on their screens. It was enormous. The ship was called the Celestial Dawn, and it was truly massive. It was so large that it looked like a floating city made of metal. The ship had weapons that covered every side. Towers and structures rose from its surface. Kevin whistled when he saw it. "That is big," Kevin said to Laura. "Really, really big." Laura nodded. She had known it would be impressive, but seeing it in person was different. It made her understand why so many species feared the Valorians. This ship represented power. It represented strength. But Laura knew something that others did not. She knew that big did not always mean best. The Valorian commander was named Krell. He was tall and had blue skin that seemed to shine in the light. His eyes were very dark, and when he looked at humans, he seemed to look down at them. Krell welcomed Laura and her team with words that sounded polite, but meant something different. He was saying that he was better than them. He was showing off. He was telling them that they were visitors to his space and they should be grateful. Krell smiled at Laura. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who felt superior. He said, "Welcome, humans. I am glad you came to see what real power looks like. Not many species in the galaxy have the ability to build something like the Celestial Dawn, but the Valorians have been building ships like this for thousands of years. We are very far ahead of you." Laura smiled back at him. She did not feel small, even though she was standing on his ship. She had trained for this moment. She knew how to handle someone like Krell. She said, "Thank you for inviting us, Commander Krell. Your ship is very impressive. We are honored to see it." Then Krell offered to show them around the ship. He walked them through the halls. Everything was enormous. The doors were huge. The rooms were massive. Krell wanted to show them how advanced everything was. He wanted them to understand that the Valorians were so far ahead of humanity that catching up would take thousands of years. Kevin walked quietly, observing everything. He looked at the power systems. He looked at the engines. He looked at the weapon systems. As they walked, he began to notice things. He noticed that the power systems were very large and centralized. That meant if something went wrong with one main system, the whole ship could be in trouble. He noticed that the ship's structure was built for size, not for efficiency. It used a lot of power to move something so massive. He noticed that the weapons were powerful but slow. They took time to aim and fire. Amy was doing the same thing. She was looking at how the ship was organized. She was thinking about tactics. She was imagining what would happen if there was a battle. She saw that the Valorian ship was designed for one thing, to be so big and powerful that enemies would give up before fighting. But that kind of design had problems. A smaller, faster ship could move around it. A ship with better computers could aim more accurately. A ship built for speed could avoid the big weapons. Krell showed them the main control room. It was impressive. There were screens everywhere. There were thousands of soldiers and workers. Everything was controlled from this one room. But Kevin and Amy realized something important. All of this was in one place. If something happened to this room, the whole ship would have problems. Later, Krell asked Laura about humanity's military ships. He asked this because he wanted to hear that humans had nothing. He wanted to hear that humans were far behind. He wanted to make them feel small. Laura smiled at Krell. She said, "We have some ships that we are proud of. They are not as large as the Celestial Dawn, but they are good ships. I think you might find them interesting." Krell laughed. He said, "And of course I would find them interesting. Everything humans do is interesting, but I do not think they could compare to what we have built here." Laura did not argue with him. Instead, she asked Kevin to send a message to Earth's fleet. She asked them to move one ship into position. She asked them to make it look like a coincidence. She asked them to move the UES Defiant to the meeting area. The Defiant was humanity's most advanced warship. It was not as large as the Valorian ship, but it was built with human ingenuity and innovation. Kevin sent the message carefully. He made it seem like the Defiant was just passing through the area. He made it seem like an accident that it would appear on the Valorian sensors soon. Laura knew that Krell would see the ship appear. She knew that he would ask to see it, and she knew what would happen when the Valorians realized what humanity had created. As Laura and her team continued to walk through the Celestial Dawn, she felt confident. Humanity was ready. Humanity had built something special, and very soon, the Valorians would learn that impressing them would not be as easy as they thought. The game had started, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what it could really do. The alarm sounded on the Valorian control center, but it was not an attack alarm. It was a detection alarm. Something had just appeared on their sensors. Commander Krell was standing in the main command room when the officers began to talk rapidly. They were excited and confused at the same time. A ship had appeared in the nearby sector. A human ship. Krell looked at the screen. He saw the vessel appear from faster-than-light travel. It was small, very small. Compared to the Celestial Dawn, it looked like a toy. Krell expected to feel amused. He expected to feel superior. But something was different about this ship. He could not explain it. But something about the way it moved and the way it appeared on the sensors was strange. Laura was still on the Celestial Dawn with Kevin and Amy. She received a message on her personal communicator. It was a simple message from Earth. It said, "The Defiant has arrived in the sector." Laura showed no emotion, but inside she felt excited. Kevin and Amy exchanged quick looks. They knew what was about to happen. Krell came to find Laura in the guest quarters. He looked confused and curious at the same time. He said, "Laura, we have detected a human vessel in the area. I did not know you were expecting visitors. It is very small. It barely shows up on our sensors. Is it broken? Does it need help?" Laura stood up calmly. She said, "Oh, that is the UES Defiant. It is one of our warships. I sent a message to our fleet asking them to move into this sector. I thought it would be good for you to see one of our military vessels. I hope you do not mind." Krell's expression changed. He said, "A warship? That little thing is a warship? How is that possible?" He ordered his officers to get more information about the Defiant. He wanted to see what this small human ship could do. Commander Marcus Chen was the captain of the UES Defiant. He was a military officer with years of experience. He had trained for this moment. When his ship appeared in the sector, he began running all of the Defiant systems at their highest level. The ship started sending out signals. It began scanning the Valorian vessel with advanced sensors. It positioned itself in a way that showed confidence and skill. Marcus opened a communication channel to the Valorian flagship. He said, "Valorian Command, this is Commander Marcus Chen of the United Earthship Defiant. I am here to participate in the diplomatic mission. I hope our arrival did not cause any alarm. We are here as peaceful partners in this historic meeting." Krell responded to Marcus. His voice sounded different now. He was trying to hide something. He said, "Welcome, human commander. We are pleased to see your vessel. We would like to know more about your ship. It is very different from what we expected." Marcus smiled. He said, "Thank you, Commander Krell. We are proud of the Defiant. It is small, yes, but it is very efficient. Perhaps you would like a demonstration of our ship's capabilities." Before Krell could respond, the Defiant did something that shocked everyone. It turned rapidly. It moved in a way that should have created stress on the ship's structure, but the Defiant moved smoothly and quickly. It accelerated to a very high speed in just a few seconds. Then it slowed down just as quickly. Then it rotated in a complete circle while moving forward at high speed. No human or Valorian ship should be able to do this, but the Defiant did it easily. Kevin was in the Valorian command center watching the sensors with Krell. He said, "Our ship is small, but it is built for maneuverability. We made it light and flexible. We also gave it very powerful computers that control the ship's movement. This allows us to make quick turns and fast movements without hurting the ship or the crew. The Valorian officers were amazed. They had never seen a ship move like this. Their ships were so large that they moved slowly and carefully. The Defiant was dancing in space. Then Marcus asked Krell if he would like to see the Defiant's weapons system. Krell said yes immediately. He wanted to understand how a small ship could possibly be dangerous. The Defiant positioned itself at a safe distance from the celestial dawn. Marcus activated the ship's targeting systems. A laser shot out from the Defiant, but it was not aimed at the Valorian ship. Instead, it aimed at a piece of space debris floating nearby. The laser was so precise and so accurate that it hit the debris perfectly. The debris broke apart into smaller pieces. Then the Defiant's computer system locked onto a new target. It was another piece of debris. This time, the laser fired again and again, hitting each piece with perfect accuracy. It was like watching a skilled shooter hit targets one after another without missing. Krell looked shocked. The Valorian weapons were powerful, but they were not precise like this. The Valorian weapons were designed to destroy large targets with brute force, but this human weapon was designed to hit exactly where it aimed. It was designed for efficiency and accuracy. Kevin explained to Krell, "We built our weapons to be smart and accurate. Because our ship is small, we cannot rely on raw power. Instead, we rely on intelligence and precision. Our weapons have computers that calculate the best angle and the best time to fire. The computer helps the weapon aim perfectly every time," Amy added. "We also built our ship to move quickly and avoid damage. While a larger ship might take direct hits, our ship can move out of the way. We can move faster than the weapons from most other ships can adjust their aim." Marcus sent detailed information about the Defiant to the Valorian Command Center. The information included specifications about the ship's engines, weapons, shields, and computer systems. As the Valorian officers read this information, they began to understand something that shocked them. The humans had not built their ship to be the biggest or the strongest. They had built their ship to be the smartest. The Defiant's power systems were advanced and efficient. They produced a lot of power without wasting energy. The Defiant's shields could protect the ship from attacks. The Defiant's weapons could aim and fire faster than the Valorian weapons. The Defiant's computers could make decisions quickly. The Defiant could turn and move in ways that the Valorian ships could not. Krell realized something that made him feel uncomfortable. He realized that the Valorians had made a mistake in their thinking. They had assumed that size and power were everything. They had assumed that a larger ship was always a better ship. But the humans had proven something different. The humans had built a small ship that was better than the Celestial Dawn in almost every way except size. Laura watched Krell's face as he understood this. She saw the moment when his confidence began to break. She saw the moment when he realized that humanity was not as far behind as he had thought. Marcus sent one final message to Krell. He said, "Commander Krell, thank you for allowing us to show you the Defiant. We respect your ship and your people. We hope this demonstration shows that humanity is ready to be part of the galactic community as an equal partner, not as a junior member. We believe that different approaches to building ships and fighting battles can both have value. We believe that cooperation between our species could create something even better than either of us could build alone." Krell did not respond right away. He was thinking. He was processing what he had seen. He was trying to understand how a young species like humanity could have advanced so far so quickly. He was beginning to understand that his initial plans to intimidate the humans might not work as he had expected. The game had changed, and Krell was beginning to realize that humanity might be a more valuable partner than he had thought. 3 days after the Defiant arrived, Krell proposed something that surprised Laura. He wanted to conduct a military exercise. He wanted to simulate a battle between the Valorian fleet and the human fleet. He said this would help both species understand how the other fought. Laura agreed to this idea, but she insisted that the exercise would use only sensor feedback and simulated weapons. No one would be hurt. It would be like a game, but the game would show what would happen if there was a real battle. The exercise was set up in a large section of space away from inhabited areas. The Valorian fleet consisted of 5 large battleships like the Celestial Dawn and 10 smaller warships that supported them. The human fleet consisted of the Defiant, 4 support vessels, and 6 smaller defense ships. On paper, the Valorian fleet looked much more powerful, but Amy Rodriguez was not worried. She had studied the Valorian battle tactics and she understood how they fought. Amy had spent hours looking at recordings of past Valorian conflicts. She had studied how they arranged their ships. She had learned that Valorian tactics were always the same. They liked to form a tight group and move together. They liked to overwhelm their enemies with constant firepower from multiple ships at once. It was a simple strategy, and it had worked for thousands of years because most alien species were afraid to fight them. But humans were different. Humans had fought against stronger enemies for their entire history. Throughout human evolution, humans had learned to fight enemies that were bigger and stronger. Humans had learned to use intelligence and strategy instead of pure strength. This was in human DNA. This was who humans were. The simulated battle began early in the morning. The Valorian fleet formed their usual tight formation. The 15 Valorian ships moved together in a coordinated group. They moved toward the human fleet positions. The Valorian commander was an officer named Thrall. He believed that his fleet was so powerful that the humans would try to run away. He believed that humans would be afraid and would surrender, but the human fleet did not run away. Instead, the Defiant moved first. Marcus Chen ordered the Defiant to move to the left side of the Valorian formation. The Defiant moved quickly and smoothly. Then the 4 human support vessels moved to the right side. The 6 defense ships moved above the Valorian fleet. The human ships were spreading out. They were not staying together like the Valorians. Thrall watched this happen on his screens. He did not understand what the humans were doing. He thought they were making a mistake. He ordered his fleet to move forward and fire on the Defiant. The Valorian weapons began to shoot. Beams of energy and missiles flew through space. But the Defiant was not there anymore. Marcus had moved the ship before the Valorian weapons could hit it. The weapons passed through empty space. Then something unexpected happened. The human defense ships fired at the Valorian fleet. They did not try to hit the main battleships. Instead, they targeted the smaller support vessels. The support ships were hit by sensor feedback that showed they had taken damage in the simulation. But the Valorian fleet kept moving forward. Thrall did not care about the support ships. He wanted to destroy the Defiant. Marcus moved the Defiant again. This time he moved it behind the Valorian formation. The Valorian fleet had to turn around to face the Defiant. But when they turned around, the human support vessels moved in from the sides. They attacked the Valorian battleships from angles that were difficult to defend. The Valorian ships had to turn again to face this new threat. Amy was coordinating the human fleet from the command center on the Defiant. She was giving orders to all the human ships. She was telling them where to move and when to fire. She was thinking 3 steps ahead of what the Valorians would do. While Thrall was trying to catch the Defiant, Amy was attacking his fleet from multiple directions at the same time. The Valorian fleet became confused. They were used to fighting enemies that stayed in one place and tried to fight them head-on. They were not used to fighting enemies that moved quickly and attacked from many different directions. The simulation showed that many of the Valorian ships had taken damage. Some of the smaller support ships had been destroyed completely. Kevin was monitoring the Valorian power systems. He noticed something important. The main battleships were using a lot of energy trying to turn and move quickly. They were not designed for this kind of fighting. The battleships were overheating their engines. The battleships were struggling. Then Marcus made a bold move. He ordered the Defiant to move directly toward the main Valorian battleship. This was the ship commanded by Thrall. The Valorian commander thought this was his chance. He thought the humans had finally made a mistake. He ordered all of his remaining ships to attack the Defiant, but Marcus was not attacking. He was moving the Defiant in a specific pattern. The Defiant moved left, then right, then up, then down. The Defiant was moving in a way that made the Valorian weapons miss every time. The Valorian missiles and energy beams could not hit a target that was moving so quickly and unpredictably. Then, when the Defiant was very close to the main Valorian battleship, something surprising happened. The human computer system locked onto the Valorian ship's power core. The Defiant fired a single, precise shot. The sensor feedback showed that the shot had hit the power core directly. The simulation indicated that the main Valorian battleship had suffered catastrophic damage. If this had been a real battle, the ship would have been destroyed. The simulated battle ended. The Valorian fleet had lost most of their ships. The human fleet had taken some damage, but most of their ships were still operational. The results were shocking. A smaller human fleet had defeated a larger Valorian fleet. The command officers from both fleets met together after the battle. Thrall looked angry and confused. He said, "This is impossible. How did your small ships defeat our powerful fleet? Your ships are not stronger than ours." Amy stood up and explained. She said, "Our ships are not stronger in terms of raw power, but we fought in a different way. Your fleet moves together like one big target. We moved separately and attacked from many directions at the same time. Your ships are designed to move slowly and carefully. Our ships are designed to move quickly. Your weapons take time to aim and fire. Our weapons are controlled by computers that aim and fire automatically. Most importantly, our strategy is based on speed, intelligence, and adaptation. Your strategy is based on power and intimidation." Kevin added more information. He said, "We studied your ship designs. We noticed that your main power sources are in one central location. If something happens to that one area, your whole ship has problems. Our ships have power systems spread throughout. We also noticed that your ships are so large that they need a lot of time to change direction. Our ships can change direction quickly. In a battle, speed and flexibility are very important." Amy continued, "Throughout human history, humans have fought against larger and stronger enemies. We learned that brute force is not always the best way to win. We learned to use our minds and our ability to adapt. We learned to find the weaknesses in our enemies and attack those weaknesses. This is how humans think about war and strategy." Krell was silent for a long time. He was processing what he had learned. He realized that the Valorians had been thinking about war the wrong way for thousands of years. They had become comfortable and lazy. They had assumed that their size and power would always be enough. But the humans had shown them that this was not true. Krell finally spoke. He said, "You have shown us something important today, humans. You have shown us that our way of fighting is not the best way. You have shown us that there are different approaches to war and strategy. We have been the dominant power in this galaxy for so long that we stopped learning and stopped innovating. You have reminded us that complacency is dangerous." Krell extended his hand to Laura in the human gesture of respect. He said, "Humanity does not just have a good ship. Humanity has a good mind. Humanity has learned to think in ways that we had forgotten. I believe that our species can learn much from each other." The formal negotiation room on the Valorian flagship looked very different now compared to when Laura first arrived. The atmosphere had changed completely. Before, Krell had treated the humans like guests who were visiting a superior power. Now he treated them like equals. He treated them like partners who had something valuable to offer. Krell sat across from Laura at a large table. Between them were documents and communication screens. Krell looked thoughtful. He was preparing to say something very important. He had been thinking about what happened during the simulated battle. He had been thinking about what the humans had shown him. Most importantly, he had been thinking about what this meant for the Valorian Empire. Krell said, "Laura, humanity has surprised us. When we invited you to meet with us, we expected to show you our power and make you understand your place in the galactic community. We expected you would want to join our alliance and follow our leadership. But things have changed. You have changed everything." Laura listened carefully. She did not interrupt. She wanted to hear what Krell would say next. Krell continued, "For thousands of years, the Valorians have been the strongest military power in this galaxy. Other species were afraid of us. Other species obeyed us. But I realize now that fear and obedience are not the same as respect. Humanity does not fear us. Humanity respects us. But more importantly, humanity respects itself. Humanity believes in its own abilities. This is something we had forgotten how to do." Krell paused. He looked directly at Laura. He said, "I want to propose something to you. I want to propose that humanity and the Valorians form a partnership. Not a partnership where one species leads and the other follows, but a true partnership where both species work together as equals. We can share our knowledge, we can learn from each other. Together we could make something stronger than either of us could make alone." Laura smiled. This was exactly what she had hoped would happen. She said, "Commander Krell, I think that is a wonderful idea. But I want to make sure that we understand what equal partnership means. It means that humans will have a voice in decisions. It means that human ideas will be valued just as much as Valorian ideas. It means that we will not accept orders. We will make decisions together." Krell nodded. He said, Yes, I understand. That is exactly what I am proposing. Equal partnership, shared decision-making, mutual respect. Over the next few days, Laura and Krell worked together to plan what this partnership would look like. They decided to create several joint projects. First, they would establish combined research stations on several planets. Scientists from both species would work together to develop new technologies. Second, they would create a shared military training program. Human tactical officers would teach Valorian commanders how to think about unconventional warfare. Valorian engineers would teach humans how to build larger and more powerful ships. Kevin Walsh was very excited about this. He began working with a Valorian engineer named Zrel. Kevin and Zrel started designing a new type of ship. This ship would combine the best ideas from both species. It would use Valorian technology for the main structure and power systems. It would use human technology for the weapons and computer systems. It would use human tactical flexibility combined with Valorian power and durability. The ship they designed was beautiful and powerful. It was larger than the Defiant, but much smaller than the Celestial Dawn. It was fast and maneuverable like the Defiant, but it also had the power and strength of a Valorian battleship. They named this ship the Harmony because it represented harmony between the two species. Amy Rodriguez began working on the military training program. She conducted classes for Valorian commanders. She taught them about human military history. She taught them about human tactics and strategy. She explained that humans had always been creative fighters. She explained that humans had learned to use intelligence instead of just strength. One of the Valorian commanders was named Thrall, the same officer who had commanded the fleet during the simulated battle. Thrall was learning from Amy. At first he was defensive. He did not want to admit that the Valorian way of fighting was wrong, but as Amy taught him more and more, he began to understand. He began to see that there were many different ways to approach a problem. He began to see that the human way of thinking could complement the Valorian way of thinking. Thrall said to Amy one day, "I spent my whole life believing that the Valorian way was the only way. I believed that if we were big enough and strong enough, we could defeat anyone. But you have shown me that this is not always true. You have shown me that intelligence and speed and adaptation can be just as important as size and power." Amy replied, "It is not that one way is better than the other way. It is that different situations require different approaches. Sometimes you need power and strength. Sometimes you need speed and intelligence. A good warrior knows how to use both." Meanwhile, on Earth, the news about humanity's success was spreading. Other alien species heard about the simulated battle. They heard about how a human fleet had defeated a Valorian fleet. They heard that humanity had been invited to form a true partnership with the Valorians as equals. Species that had previously feared the Valorians began to contact Earth. They wanted to know if humanity might be interested in forming alliances with them too. Laura received messages from ambassadors representing 10 different alien species. All of them were interested in meeting with humans. All of them wanted to understand how humanity had advanced so quickly. All of them wanted to know if humans might help them. Krell was watching this happen. He realized that the Valorians were no longer the only powerful species in the galaxy. The balance of power had shifted, but instead of feeling threatened, Krell felt relieved. He realized that being the only dominant power had been lonely and isolating. Now, with humanity as a partner, the Valorians could do more than they could do alone. They could help other species. They could work together to make the galaxy a better place. Krell went to Laura and said, "Do you see what is happening? Species all across the galaxy are reaching out to you. They are asking for help. They are asking for alliances. Humanity has become important to the galaxy very quickly." Laura said, "This is good, but it is also a responsibility. We need to be careful about which alliances we make. We need to make sure that we use our power wisely. We need to help other species, but we also need to protect ourselves." Krell agreed. He said, "I have a suggestion. What if the Valorians and humans work together to establish a new kind of organization in the galaxy? An organization based on cooperation instead of domination. An organization where species share power and make decisions together. An organization that helps all species live together peacefully." Laura's eyes lit up. She said, "That is an excellent idea. I think that is exactly what the galaxy needs. A group of species that work together to promote peace and cooperation instead of fear and dominance." Over the following weeks, Laura and Krell worked together to contact other alien species. They invited them to join a new galactic alliance. They explained that this alliance would be different from anything that had existed before. In this alliance, all species would have equal power. All species would have a voice. No single species would be able to dominate the others. The response was incredible. Species after species agreed to join the new alliance. The Valorians and humans had created something that the galaxy had never seen before. They had created a community where different species could work together as partners. They had created a system based on cooperation instead of conflict. Krell looked at Laura during one of their final meetings before the formal alliance was established. He said, "When you arrived on my ship, I expected to teach you a lesson about your place in the galaxy. But instead, you taught me a lesson. You taught me that the galaxy is much bigger than I thought. You taught me that there is always something new to learn. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for showing the Valorians that we had become complacent. Thank you for reminding us how to think and how to innovate." Laura shook Krell's hand. She said, "Thank you for being willing to listen and to change. That takes courage. That takes wisdom. I believe that together, we can do amazing things for this galaxy." 6 months had passed since Laura Hayes first set foot on the Valorian flagship. 6 months had passed since the simulated battle that changed everything. The galaxy had been transformed by what humanity and the Valorians had started together. Now the combined forces of both species were working on something that no one had ever attempted before. They were building a new kind of future. The Joint Research Station orbited a planet called Kepler-7. It was a massive structure, and it was covered with both human and Valorian technology. Inside the station, scientists from both species worked side by side. They were developing new weapon systems. They were creating new ship designs. They were sharing knowledge that both species had kept secret for centuries. Kevin Walsh walked through the station with his Valorian partner, Srel. They were going to inspect the Harmony, the hybrid battleship they had designed together. The ship was almost complete now. It represented everything that had happened over the past 6 months. It represented cooperation. It represented progress. It represented a new era for the galaxy. The Harmony was stunning to look at. It had the sleek shape of a human ship, but it was much larger and more powerful than the Defiant. It had Valorian power cores, but they were distributed throughout the ship instead of concentrated in one central location. It had human weapons systems with advanced computers, but the weapons were mounted on Valorian structural frameworks that were incredibly strong. The ship was beautiful because it was a true blend of two different civilizations working together. Kevin said to Zrel, "This ship represents everything we have learned about each other. It is not just a Valorian ship or a human ship. It is a ship that belongs to both of us." Zrel agreed. He said, "Yes, and it is more powerful than either of our species could have built alone. When both species work together, we create something greater than what we could create separately. The Harmony would be the flagship of a new combined fleet. This fleet would not belong to the Valorians or the humans alone. It would belong to both species equally. The fleet would patrol the galaxy and maintain peace. The fleet would help any species that needed help. The fleet would ensure that no single species could dominate all the others." Meanwhile, on Earth, preparations were being made for an important event. The Galactic Council was going to meet, and Commander Laura Hayes had been asked to speak. She was going to present humanity's vision for the galaxy's future. She was going to explain how humanity believed all species could live together in peace. Laura stood in front of thousands of delegates from different alien species. The council chamber was enormous, and it was filled with beings of all different shapes and sizes. Some were tall and thin. Some were short and round. Some had multiple arms. Some communicated through colors and light. But all of them had one thing in common. All of them wanted to hear what humanity had to say. Laura began to speak. Her voice was calm and clear. She said, "My name is Laura Hayes, and I represent the human race. When we first came to the galactic stage, we were young and inexperienced. We did not have the ancient knowledge that so many of you possess. We did not have the advanced technology that some of you have developed over thousands of years. But we did have something that is just as valuable. We had the ability to adapt. We had the ability to learn. We had the ability to innovate, she continued. Throughout human history, humans have faced challenges that seemed impossible to overcome. Humans have always been smaller and weaker than many of our enemies. Humans have always been outnumbered in conflicts. But humans learned that being smaller and weaker is not always a disadvantage. It taught us to think creatively. It taught us to work together. It taught us to find solutions that others had not thought of. Laura gestured toward the Valorian delegates. She said, "When we met with the Valorians, we were afraid. We were meeting a species that had dominated this galaxy for thousands of years, a species that was more advanced than us in many ways. But instead of trying to fight them or compete with them, we showed them what we could do. We showed them our different way of thinking. We showed them that there are many different approaches to solving problems." She looked out at all the delegates. She said, "I am here today to tell you that this galaxy does not need one dominant species ruling over all the others. This galaxy needs cooperation. This galaxy needs all of our different ways of thinking working together. Humans bring innovation and adaptability. Valorians bring power and stability. Your species bring your own unique gifts. When we combine all of these gifts, we can create something that none of us could create alone." Laura's speech was received with respect and agreement. Many species applauded. Some species communicated their support through other means. The message was clear. The galaxy was ready for a new kind of organization. The galaxy was ready for cooperation instead of domination. After the council meeting, Laura met with Krell in a private room. Krell looked proud. He said, "Your speech was excellent, Laura. You have helped the galaxy understand something that we have forgotten. We have forgotten that diversity is a strength, not a weakness." Laura said, "We should celebrate this together, but we also need to remember that this is just the beginning. Creating a peaceful galaxy will take time and effort. We need to continue working together. We need to continue learning from each other." Krell nodded. He said, "I have already begun planning the next phase. I want to create an academy where young Valorians and humans can study together. I want to create a school where both species learn the same history and the same values. If we teach the next generation to work together from the beginning, they will never know conflict between our species." Laura was excited by this idea. She said, "That is perfect, Krell. That is exactly what we need. If the next generation grows up knowing each other and respecting each other, they will build a galaxy that is even better than what we have built." Amy Rodriguez was leading a training program for the combined fleet. She was teaching both human and Valorian officers how to work together in battle. She was showing them how human tactical thinking could complement Valorian military power. She was showing them that when both species fought together, they were much stronger than when they fought separately. One day, Thrall came to Amy and said, "I want to tell you something. When I first fought against your fleet in the simulation, I was angry. I thought that you had cheated somehow. I thought that we should have won. But now I understand. We did not lose because we were weak. We lost because we were not flexible enough. You have taught me that strength is not just about power. Strength is also about being able to change and adapt." Amy smiled. She said, "That is the most important lesson that anyone can learn. The universe is always changing. Species that can change and adapt survive. Species that refuse to change and adapt disappear." Kevin and Zrel were celebrating the completion of the Harmony. They held a ceremony on the ship where both human and Valorian flags were raised. The two friends stood together on the bridge of the ship and looked out at the stars. Kevin said, "A year ago, I never thought this would be possible. I never thought I would be building ships with a Valorian engineer." Zrel said, "A year ago, I never thought I would respect a human as much as I respect you. I never thought that a younger species could teach me anything important. But you have taught me that it is never too late to learn. It is never too late to change the way you think about the universe." 6 months of cooperation had transformed the galaxy. A new era had begun. Species that had previously feared each other now worked together. Species that had never imagined cooperation now saw that cooperation made them all stronger. The Valorians had learned that age and experience did not guarantee wisdom. Humanity had learned that being young did not mean being weak. Laura stood on the bridge of the Defiant and looked out at the stars. She thought about everything that had happened. She thought about how different things could have been if Krell had remained stubborn and arrogant. She thought about how different things could have been if the humans had been afraid of the Valorians. But none of that had happened. Instead, two very different species had learned to respect each other. They had learned to work together. They had learned that the future could be built together. A message came through the communication system. It was a transmission being sent throughout the galaxy to every species that had joined the new alliance. The message was simple and powerful. It said, humanity is here. Humanity is capable. Humanity is ready to shape the future alongside all species who value progress, cooperation, and mutual respect. As Laura listened to this message, she felt a deep sense of pride and hope. Humanity had come to the galaxy not with weapons and conquest on their minds. Humanity had come with ideas and innovation and a desire to work together. And the galaxy had responded. The galaxy had recognized humanity's value. The galaxy had welcomed humanity as an equal partner. The adventure was just beginning. There were still many challenges ahead. There were still many problems to solve. But for the first time, it seemed like all these challenges could be solved together. Species that had fought each other for thousands of years were now working side by side. That was the real power. That was the real strength. That was the future that humanity and the Valorians and all the other. 1 year had passed since the formation of the new Galactic Alliance. 1 year had passed since humanity stepped onto the galactic stage and changed everything. But the story was far from over. In fact, everything that had happened was just the beginning of something much larger. New challenges were emerging, and humanity would need to prove itself once again. An emergency signal came through to the combined command center where Laura Hayes worked with Krell and the other leaders of the Alliance. The signal was from a distant region of space. It came from the Theta 9 sector, a place where humans and Valorians had recently established a joint research colony. The colony was under attack. The attack was not coming from any of the known enemies in the galaxy. It was coming from an unknown species. No one in the Alliance had ever encountered these beings before. They called themselves the Ravagers. They were a ruthless and aggressive species that conquered planets and enslaved or destroyed the inhabitants. The Ravagers had somehow discovered the colony, and they were attacking it with overwhelming force. Laura looked at the distress message on her screen. She saw images of the colony. She saw explosions and destruction. She saw brave scientists and soldiers fighting to protect what they had built. She saw people she knew and respected fighting for their lives. Laura felt a cold determination settle inside her. She turned to Krell and said, "We need to send a fleet to help them. We need to send it now." Krell was already making the same decision. He said, "I am ordering the Harmony and all available ships to move to the Theta 9 sector immediately. We will not abandon our people." Marcus Chen was commanding the Harmony now. The ship had become even more advanced in the past year. It had been through several upgrades and improvements. It carried both human and Valorian pilots and crew members working together as a single unit. When Marcus received the order to move to Theta 9, he did not hesitate. Marcus said to his combined crew, "Prepare for immediate departure. We have people in danger and we are going to help them. I want all systems checked and ready for combat. We do not know what we are facing, but we are going to face it together as one crew." The Harmony launched from the station and jumped into faster-than-light travel. The ship would reach the Theta 9 sector in 8 hours. Behind the Harmony came 20 other ships. 10 were Valorian warships, 10 were human ships. Together they formed the first truly combined military force of the Alliance. Meanwhile, at the colony, Dr. Sarah Wilson was leading the defense. Sarah was a human scientist who had been studying the planet's geology and mineral resources, but now she was a soldier. When the Ravagers attacked, Sarah had organized the colony's personnel into a defensive force. They had barricaded themselves inside the main research facility. They were holding out and hoping that help would arrive in time. The Ravagers were terrifying. They were large muscular beings with thick armor-like skin. They moved with incredible speed and strength. They did not try to negotiate or communicate. They simply attacked and destroyed everything. They used weapons that burned and melted materials that humans and Valorians thought were nearly indestructible. Sarah watched as her people fought. She watched a young human engineer named David fight off 3 Ravagers with a plasma rifle. She watched a Valorian security officer named Cross defend wounded colonists with a hand-to-hand combat style that was fierce and brutal. They were doing everything they could, but there were too many Ravagers. Sarah knew that if help did not arrive soon, everyone at the colony would be killed. Then Sarah saw something on the sensors that made her heart jump. A fleet was arriving. Human and Valorian ships were entering the sector. The Harmony was at the front, blazing toward the Ravager positions. Marcus analyzed the situation immediately. He saw that the Ravagers had landed fighters on the surface. He saw that they were using massive ground-based weapons to attack the colony. He saw that they were trying to break through the colony's defenses. Marcus made a decision. He ordered the Harmony and the other ships to move into orbit around the planet. Then he coordinated an attack on the Ravager forces on the ground. Human fighters and Valorian fighter ships worked together to strafe the Ravager positions. They fired on the enemy ground weapons, trying to destroy them before they could do more damage. The Ravagers realized that they were facing a combined force that was much more powerful than they had expected. They began to retreat, but they did not retreat in panic. They retreated in an organized military fashion. They launched their fighters back into space. They tried to regroup and prepare for a space battle. The battle in space was intense and brutal. The Ravager ships were different from anything that humans or Valorians had faced before. They were very maneuverable despite being large. They moved in unpredictable patterns. They fired weapons that seemed to ignore normal shield technology. But the combined human and Valorian fleet had advantages that the Ravagers did not expect. The human ships moved with incredible speed and accuracy. The Valorian ships provided heavy firepower and structural support. The two species worked together seamlessly. When Ravager ships attacked from one direction, the human fighters would move in from another direction, while Valorian support ships provided cover. Amy Rodriguez, who was now the commander of tactical operations for the combined fleet, coordinated the entire battle. She moved the human and Valorian ships in a coordinated pattern that left the Ravagers with no good options. They could not escape without being attacked. They could not attack without being outmaneuvered. Then the Harmony executed a maneuver that decided the entire battle. Marcus took the ship directly toward the largest Ravager battleship. The Ravager commander probably expected the Harmony to stop at a safe distance. But Marcus did not stop. He brought the Harmony in close, and then he fired a combined salvo of human precision weapons and Valorian power cannons. The weapons hit the Ravager battleship with devastating accuracy. The Ravager ship's shields collapsed, and then the ship itself exploded. The Ravagers realized they were facing defeat. They began to retreat in their remaining ships. Marcus wanted to pursue them, but Amy advised against it. She said, "We do not know where they came from or how many more of them exist. We should consolidate our position and make sure the colony is safe. Then we can plan our next move." Marcus agreed. He ordered the fleet to stand down and secure the colony. The Ravagers jumped into faster-than-light travel and disappeared from the sector. When the fighting was over, Sarah and the other colonists came out of their shelter. They found themselves surrounded by human and Valorian soldiers. They found themselves safe. They had survived because of the cooperation and coordination of the Allied forces. Marcus went down to the colony to meet with Sarah. He said, "Are you all right? Is everyone safe?" Sarah nodded. She said, "We are okay. Thank you for coming so quickly. If you had been any slower, we would all be dead." Marcus said, "We came as quickly as we could. That is what partners do. That is what the Alliance means. When one of us is in danger, all of us come to help." Back at the command center, Laura and Krell received the report that the Ravagers had been defeated and the colony had been saved. They looked at each other and they both felt the weight of what this new threat meant. Krell said to Laura, "This is a new challenge for our Alliance. We have defeated an enemy that none of us had ever encountered before. But there may be more of these Ravagers out there. There may be other threats that we have not imagined yet." Laura said, "That is true. But we also proved something important today. We proved that when humans and Valorians work together, we can defeat any enemy. We proved that our alliance is not just a political arrangement. It is a real military force that can protect all of our people." Laura sent a message throughout the alliance. She said, "Today we faced a new enemy. Today we defeated that enemy. Today we proved that our alliance is strong and capable. The Ravagers learned that when they attack one of us, they attack all of us. The galaxy will learn that the alliance is not just words and promises. The alliance is a force that protects its members and maintains peace." The victory at the colony changed something in the galaxy. Other species that had been uncertain about joining the alliance now wanted to join. Species understood that the alliance was not just a nice idea. The alliance was actually capable of protecting them. The alliance had real power. Kevin Walsh stood with Zarel on the bridge of the Harmony after the battle. Kevin said, "We built this ship together. We designed it together. And today we used it to save lives. That is what cooperation means. That is what working together can accomplish. Zrel looked at his human friend and said, "A year ago, I did not believe that humans and Valorians could work together. I did not believe that two such different species could accomplish anything meaningful. But I was wrong. We have accomplished something that neither of us could have done alone. We have created something that can protect the galaxy." As the combined fleet prepared to return to the main stations, Laura reflected on what had happened. The Alliance had faced its first real test, and it had passed. Humanity and the Valorians had proven that they could work together not just in theory, but in actual military combat. They had proven that cooperation was not just an ideal. Cooperation was practical and effective. But Laura also knew